Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan, of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, we do not intend for it to be long. Nonetheless, brothers and sisters, we want to get this message out to the people, to the brothers, to the sisters, be they hear it right now or be they hear it later on. We ask you all to subscribe to the channel. We ask you all to comment, like, and share. If you have a disagreement or a dislike, we ask you to leave it within the comments in a respectful manner. Brothers and sisters, I hope and bid everybody a blessed Sabbath. I hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. If a brother offended anyone, I ask you all to forgive me. And I'm beginning to learn where I did not understand. You have to forgive in order to be able to move on. Even if the person doesn't ask for it, you still, or the people don't ask for it, in order to move on yourself, to be able to move as a person, you have to find it in your heart, because then that will sit there and bring you back, if nothing else. We may refer to that as a healthy selfishness, and we're going to talk about that in part regarding the matter of Joseph. Was Joseph sold by his brothers? And this is what we're going to get into in this particular case. We hope you all are well. We hope you all, again, subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. If brothers and sisters, I can be heard, and if people are in good spirits, I ask you all to please type in the number 4 if you can. Type in the number 4 if you are able to hear, and if you are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. Thank you for such. Shalom, my lady Sarah Michaela. Shalom, Oriya ben Yisrael. If I'm not mistaken, Oriya means my light is Yah. Yah is my light. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong on that translation of the name, my brother. We're going to pull up this right here, and we ask you all to get your pens, your pads. We'll be citing from the Bible, only the Old Testament part, as well as the Apocrypha, and we will be citing from the book of Josephus and about 2 or so other references that is outside of the regular standard. All right, so let us pull this up, and we're going to start from the slideshow from the beginning, and let's see what it says. Was Joseph sold by his brothers? Shalom, giving honor to the Creator of heaven and earth. This presentation is based on the matter if Joseph was sold by his brothers. While I do not state I know everything, I am, italic, quite certain that Joseph was not only sold by his brothers, but they knew where he was going after he was sold. May we all learn from this. Shabbat Shalom, Marcia. How are you doing, Elder? So, brothers and sisters, a couple of people have come to me and stated, oh, keep your camera on and so on. So this time, I'll do it. Preferably, I like to have my camera off. But it is what it is. Let's go on, if we will, to the next part. Thank you for that. Genesis chapter 37. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, behold, the dreamer cometh. Now come therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say some evil beasts have devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. So what can we gather already about the matter with this here in the book of Genesis? They are what you will call, in part, in today's term, hating. we will see what will become of his dreams. You had such an indignant attitude, negative attitude, against the man to where his dreams bothered you. Now that's a form of supreme hating. You hate the person to the point to where the person's dreams bother you. That's serious, brothers and sisters. That's scary. Let's go on. And Reuben said, pardon me, verse 21. And when Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of his hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Reuben, for those who do know, was a person who did not have the best standing with his family. And the reason for that, to a great extent, is because of what Reuben did regarding Jacob's concubine by the name of Bilhah. He slept carnally with her, brothers and sisters. And what we want to point out is Bilhah is the biological mother of Dan and Naphtali. Dan is the tribe that I personally claim, brothers and sisters. Now, what Reuben did was what you call adultery. What Reuben did is what will be called wickedness. And what we want to point out, brothers and sisters, is that that is something that should not have been done. You understand? Nonetheless, we definitely do not want to castigate anybody as if any one of us is perfect at that same token and in that same premise. We do not want to follow those kind of deeds. We want to be, as we will go over, something like the character that Joseph had. You understand? So, throughout this presentation, I will be talking, therefore, I will be sipping on drink. Pardon in that case. Now, they were thinking to put Joseph inside of the pit. You understand? And Reuben was saying, no, let them not do that kind of act. Don't put your brother in, pardon me, they wanted to kill him. And Reuben's idea was just put him in a pit to say, okay, he'll deliver him later on from their hand. But let's see what happened. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down and eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. Now, why do I state in the beginning of this that not only was Joseph sold, but they knew where he was going to be sold unto? See, the reason in this presentation is because there is a teaching that says that Joseph was not sold by his brothers. So we want to let the book speak and analyze it and see what we can gain out of this particular matter. All right. So let's go on in this particular case. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Now, later on in Israelite history, you will find where Saul wanted to kill David. And Saul said, no, I'm not going to sit there and kill David. So the mindset of the brothers in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, is that, okay, let's not slay him. Let's put him in a pit. Then the next idea is when they see Ishmaelites coming, let's sell him. Verse 28. Then there passed by Midianite men, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. Now, this here seems to be the verse that some brothers and sisters would say that it was not the brothers of Joseph that sold him into Egypt, but rather it was between the Ishmaelites and the Midianites. But brothers and sisters, to that, the question I ask is this: how would either the Ishmaelites or the Midianites know that Joseph was in the pit and that was their brother, unless the Israelites, the sons of Jacob, were already in communication with these Ishmaelites and with these Midianites? When you study what they call secular history, you would find that the people of the Midianites brought the core into Egypt. And I'm going to sit there and type this in, H-O-R. They brought the core into Egypt. What that is what you see in Egyptians' style of how they did makeup. They got their makeup from the Midianites. So there was consistent trading that was going on. You would find later on that Joseph's brothers is told by their father that he heard that there's bread in Egypt, and why they're just marveling and looking at each other. You understand? So I want to point all of these things out in part for reference purposes. All right? Giving honor and praise unto the Most High. Let's read that verse. Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit. Brothers and sisters, what I am trying to present is that when it says, all right, so think about that part in that, is that when it says, and they drew, the they that did the drawing up out of the pit with Joseph was his brothers, and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Midianites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. Now, we know that currency, as time goes on in any society, goes up and down. 20 pieces of silver is what they sold their brother Joseph for. Could it be anywhere in the ballpark of, say, $1,000 maybe of today in currency? According for those who are interested, say in the book of Joshua, you will find out and read, brothers and sisters, that it was Judah and Gad that did the actual trading of the sale. And we're going to read some of these records, brothers and sisters. So let's go on into the next part. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all of them that stood by him. And he cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. Now, I want to, and I got to ask, please, for those who are listening, please, right? I want to highlight this. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. If I can be heard before I explain why I highlighted that, Can I please get a 4 for those who are able to hear and for those who are in good spirits at the same time? Because this portion right here kind of leads into a matter. It says, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. All right. Thank you, my love, Sarai, for typing in the 4. And the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. Was this an Egyptian Pharaoh that was ruling? Was there more than one Pharaoh ruling at the same time in Egypt? Have we ever heard of the Hyksos matter? Brothers and sisters, when me and my lady Sarai was in Egypt, there's a lot of history inside those. There is a lot of information on the papyri of Egypt. Brothers and sisters, this is not to play salesman on the Sabbath, but in a book that I wrote called Egypt Talking Writing, did the Torah come from the culture of Tamari? Tamari being a part of ancient Egypt. Let's go in this, brothers and sisters. There were different times where there was more than one pharaoh ruling on the throne. Certainly during what they call the intermediate periods. If you sit there and look into that, because you had the first dynasty all the way to dynasty 32. So of the 32 dynasties of Egypt, you had it to where 7 were not even Egyptian. The 15th dynasty was not Egyptian. The 16th dynasty was not Egyptian. The 22nd dynasty was not Egyptian. The 25th dynasty was not Egyptian. The 27th dynasty was not Egyptian. The 30th, the 31st, 32nd was not Egyptian. So you had several dynasties of Egypt that was not Egyptian. Dynasty 15 and 16 was that of the Hyksos. Dynasty 22 is that of, brothers and sisters, the Libyans, or what the Egyptians refer to as the Libu, L-I-B-U, people of Egypt. Dynasty 25 is, brothers and sisters, the Cushite rule over Egypt. Dynasty 27 and Dynasty 30, correct me if I'm wrong on 30, is when the Persians ruled. Then 31, 32, you get like your Greeks and so forth and so on. So, brothers and sisters, what we want to, in light of that, point out for edification purposes, if we will. The timeline given by many concerning the Egyptian matter is what the book Egypt Talking Writing also does address. So what can we gather in that particular case, if we will? Brothers and sisters, Dynasty 22, all right, in ancient Egypt was when the Libyan people ruled. This is where you get in the book of Chronicles Shishak attacking Jerusalem. The Shishak that attacked the Israelites, brothers and sisters, was not a native Egyptian pharaoh. The Shabaka that you read of by the word so in the book of 2 Kings 17 was not an indigenous Egyptian pharaoh. The Tahaka that you read of in 2 Kings 19 was not an indigenous Egyptian ruler. So the Israelites were around all of these people during all of that time. So I teach, according to my studies, that Joseph was during the time ending out of what is referred to as the second intermediate period and going into the middle kingdom, say, of Egypt. I teach brothers and sisters in my studies that the 400 years in Genesis chapter 15 is the 4 generations that take you from Joseph and Levi being the same generation, and from Levi, you get 4 generations down later to the deliverance of the Israelites out of Egypt. Genesis chapter 15, verse 16 says the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet full. So if we are going to say that Genesis 15 is about America, we have to explain the matter of the Amorite iniquity being full. And when you go into the book of Joshua, and I ask you all to subscribe to this channel and to the other channels the brother operates, More Than Yeshaya History Lessons 2. We're going to get into the book of Joshua and go over that particular history, add the PowerPoints for those who do know was already made to go online from before. But going on into this particular case, let's look. And the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. Again, I'm asking, could this house of Pharaoh not be an indigenous Egyptian? According to Bernhard Anderson, in his book, Understanding the Old Testament, Volume 3, he states that, quote, the Joseph story reflects the conditions of Egypt during that time when a Amu, oh, we got to get into this, brothers and sisters. You may want to look that up inside of ancient Egypt. Amu are the Asiatics that were inside of the land of Egypt. But these Amu, in the biblical term, can either be from Shem or from Ham. So let us continue. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Does my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now, Joseph right here in Genesis 45 is telling them what they did and who he is. Nowhere in the scriptures, correct me if I'm wrong, did the brother say, well, it really wasn't us who sold you. It was the Midianites or the Ishmaelites. No, what it says is they could not answer him for his presence. See, this is what happens when you do wrong. It does get to you if you have any kind of consciousness. There's no way in the world that they was going to be at peace knowing that they brought a lie to their father. And then they lied to Joseph, whom they did not know whom they were speaking to. Zephnath Paneah. More so in the Egyptian, Zitzenef. We know the Ankh, A-N-K-H, inside the Egyptian thing means life. And Anku in Egyptian means is alive. So when we read of Joseph's name, Jetanaf Ipianku, transliterated to the Hebraic way as simply saying Zetanaf Zaphanat Paneah, we have to understand something about linguistics. Jetanaf inside of Egyptian means he or that which is called. Ipiaku in Egyptian would mean he who brings life, he who saves life. What was Joseph saying to this in this case here? Verse 5. Now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here. For God did send me here before you to what? To preserve life. So even the brothers did not realize what they were getting into. While they think about hating on their brother, the Most High was behind what was going on. They didn't think that far, because when you read, for those who do read, the matter of lost books in the Bible, which I hardly cite on this kind of platform, the Testament of Naphtali states that hatred blocks wisdom. Hatred blocks wisdom. So they could not see around the corner being full of hatred. It caused them to misread the situation. This is why when you see the spirit that Joseph had, he said, now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here. What's here? Egypt. Let's read verse 4. It says, and Joseph said to his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. Now, his brothers put him in a pit. After putting their brother in the pit, he was brought up and out of the pit. And what I'm contending, and this is not for debate purposes, when I say contending, is when it says they brought him out or they rose him up, that they were his brothers that did it. Because if we are to say that his brothers had nothing to do with the transaction in the sale, we're going to show not only through the scriptures, as if that's not enough, because it is, but we want to show why we're saying what we're saying in this platform. Next part. Amos 2, verse 6. Thus saith Yah, for 3 transgressions of Israel, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. You sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. Somebody is pouring down and out. You don't look out for him or her. You sit there and treat them, sell them, deal with them like that of a pair of shoes. Something you just use and then get rid of. That's not good, Israel. Let's go into the Hebrew and expound upon something with the time allotted. Thank you. We want to use the laser pointer. Ko amar yorewahe. Thus saith the Most High. Al shalosha pish'e Yisrael. Concerning 3 transgressions, 3, yes, pasha means transgression. Shalosha pish'e. Transgressions of being 3 of Israel, of Israel. Israel's 3 transgressions. Wa al arba'a lo ashibenu. And concerning 4, I will not cause it to be turned back. Now, why do I say that at that point? Let's go into some Hebrew if we will, right? Look at Ashib. Ashib, brothers and sisters, and we're going to point this out with the laser pointer, right? Thank you for the time. Aleph Sheen Yobet. The Ashib comes from the Hebrew, he filled verb stem, Heshib, with back to. It's the he filled of the qual. The qual stem of it is the word shab, where you get the word shuba, which some translate as repent, but more so can be said as return. So when it says return, O Israel, what it's telling you is to repent. The Most High said it in Hosea, decades later in Isaiah, and decades after that in Jeremiah. Then we can see and go on here, brothers and sisters. Right, let's do so with the laser pointer. Al Mikram Bekesef Zadik. Concerning Mikram, their sale in silver, the righteous, were Ebyon in the destitute, Ba'abur in the inhabitants of, or in the movements of, because Abar means to go over or to across. So Ba'abur also means inside the passing over of. Now Alayim, the passing over of shoes, which means basically saying a pair of shoes. So I just wanted to say into that in the Hebrew for edification purposes. Subscribe to the channel, brothers and sisters. So what are we saying? Just as much as Amos, centuries after the situation with brother Joseph and his brothers, Israel was still doing the same thing to their own people, which is a very horrid thing. Jeremiah the prophet states that when Israel entered the land, they made that an abomination. We want to point this out for edification purposes. How's everybody doing out there? If you're feeling cool, if you're feeling good, and if you can hear me, please type in, please, the number 5. Brothers and sisters, please type in, if you're hearing me and feeling good, the number 5, so I can have some correspondence. Thank you so much. Genesis 49 with the time allotted. Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. Archers that sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. Hated their own brother. Let's look, and it's not trying to be racial. Joseph was hated on by his brothers, sold by his brothers, went down into Egypt as a slave, was doing work down there for under somebody else. Joseph had an overseer, somebody whom he had to answer to after being put in that position by his brothers who hated. A lady likes him. She tries to be carnal with him, but he runs from it. She lies on him, and then a rape charge is made against him. And he's incarcerated and put in prison for something he didn't do. That don't sound like some brothers and what they go through? Hated on by your people, hated on by your brothers, put in a situation you didn't need to be into, working under somebody else, instead of enjoying your own family under your own father. You got to now sit there and make your own way in a place that you're not used to. Get out there and get a job on your own and make it, and you'll find success. And if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best one. Then you get lied on by some chick and then put in jail for a crime you ain't do. That don't sound like the life of some black men that we can relate to? Hated on by your brothers, and then sadly, you wind up being in prison for a charge that you're innocent of. Remember the matter with Central Park, as they call it, if I'm not misquoting it, the Central Park 5 and all of that? Yeah, those people were paid back their money, or paid back money, but the time that they lost for a rape charge that was falsely accused against them, when Trump was saying at the time that those guys need to be put to death. Come to find out, the DNA showed that they innocent. One of those Central Park 5 people in the prison was raped by another man. The book of Joshua states that Joseph was flogged and caught, in so many words, a beat down by the overseers in the prison. Do you know that correction officers do attack the prisoners in jail? Joshua, a book for those who do read it, states that happened to Joseph after he was put in jail for a charge he did not do. See, this is why we talk Israel and not religion. Because in this particular sad case, it can be related to some people's lives. Hated on by your brothers, have to work for somebody else, get caught up in a charge that you're innocent of, put in prison, and while you're in prison, you get beaten. Yeah, you eventually became a CO yourself, or correction officer, Joseph became eventually. But the trials and the tribulations was horrid. Now, brothers and sisters, in Lost Books of the Bible and Forgotten Books of Eden, it's a book you can get online, right? It says that Simeon spoke about hating his brother to the point of wanting to kill him. Now, when you read in the Bible, in the scriptures, when he sent the sons of Jacob back to their father, he first took Simeon out and kept him in prison. Was there a reason why he distinguishedly picked Simeon out and kept him in prison? For those who do read or subscribe to the book of Joshua, it says the 3 days that Simeon was in prison, Joseph, while Simeon and his brothers did not know who Joseph was, he stared at him like, this guy really hated me that bad. And what made Joseph give up Simeon back to the family is he said, I fear God. This is why when you go in the book of Isaiah 14, where it talks about Babylon of the ancient world, it says Babylon that refused to let their prisoners go. King Jehoiachin of the tribe of Judah was a prisoner inside the Babylonian prisons from age 15 to age 55. That means Jehoiakim that we read of in the book of Kings, chapter 24, 2 Kings 24, okay? From age 18 all through his 20s, his 30s, and half his 50s, he knew nothing but prison life. I remember speaking to brothers who done came up out jail. And they're looking at the world of society like, this is all new to me. What happened to this? What happened to that? I'm not used to this. It's a different world when you come out of that kind of institution. So what can we gather? Do not knock brothers who have been, or sisters who have been inside of the prison system. Because if we know ourselves as Israel, some of our kings were incarcerated. Some of our ancestors was incarcerated. Joseph being one. Jehoiachin of Judah being another. And I go so far to say Jeremiah the prophet was incarcerated by Israelites. See, when we get into this matter and what we want to present and bring out to the people, brothers and sisters, is these kind of matters. What does it say? Jacob is saying that his brothers hated his son Joseph, but his bow of bold in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From this is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Even by the God of thy father who shall help thee, and by the Almighty who shall bless thee, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors, unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crown of his brothers. Let's go back, for instance, here. Verse 5. Now, therefore, be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here. So we already see Joseph is saying where he was sold to. So let's move on, brothers and sisters. For God did send me here before you to preserve life. So even if his brothers hated on him and did not respect him, and as Genesis 37 says, they could not speak peaceably to him. Do you know you cannot fake love? Do you know that in, say Israel, for instance, you can tell when somebody's shalom is genuine? You can tell in a workplace when somebody's good morning is genuine. I remember, no disrespect intended, saying good morning online, in text or whatever, or in person, and the people could not say it back. You're saying good morning. Whoa, it's like that? Maybe their morning is not good, but as presented on this channel, brothers and sisters, when I was told, no disrespect intended, it is not becoming of a moray to say good morning. That ain't the morim or teachers I came up under. In the camp I come from, you walk by and don't say good morning as a child, you best know you may be getting clapped up or spanking. So and I say no disrespect intended, the new generation coming up of Yisrael, where people feel they don't have to be greeting one another, that's not what the camps taught. So to have a concept that says it's not becoming of a moray to say good morning or so forth and so on, I have to say, ask Potiphar, who was Joseph's master. Ask him good morning. Ask the governor of Florida good morning, as he, according to the Wall Street Journal, is saying they don't want black studies or, quote, African American studies inside of high schools. That's a big thing going currently on in the state of Florida. They do not want, quote, African American studies in the high school. Let him teach your children whether they're going to have manners to say good morning to the elders. According to Alex Haley in his book Roots, it states that Kunta Kinte was made to understand while being a slave in Virginia that the elders were teaching the children how to respect their elders. I give respect to anyone who may be even an adult and have a problem with another adult, but don't allow the children to disrespect that other adult. I went through something like that and got in trouble for it. My mother, she had a problem with a neighbor, and I thought, well, mommy got a problem with her. I got a problem with her too. No, son, stay in your place. That's my problem with that lady, and we're going to work this out. Your parents having a problem with somebody which needs to be addressed does not give the children the right to sit there and be disrespectful. But the generation coming up now has it to where you don't even have to greet. So let Governor DeSantis teach your children, because he don't even want African American studies to be inside of a high school. Let the so-called black men and women keep on thinking we don't need each other, because this man's about to show you what he's about. You can look this up in the Wall Street Journal. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. Genesis 50, verse 15. And when Joseph's brethren saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will peradventure hate us and will certainly requite us all the evil which we did unto him. You know why they thought that? Because they could never forget themselves. You thought Joseph was like you. You harbored that hatred. So you felt, oh, you must be like me and you're going to hate me. Joseph isn't living like that. Whatever Joseph felt, he got off his chest by having them incarcerated, then keeping Simeon there and putting the goblets back in Benjamin's sack and having them being brought back and your spies and all of that. He already did everything he wanted to do to, quote, get them back on a human level. Their father is now deceased. Their parent is now gone. Jacob buried Leah before his death. So that means Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zebulun, they lost both their parents. We already see here that Jacob is deceased. And prior to that, Jacob said he buried Leah. That means 6 sons of Jacob, including a girl, which makes 7 children altogether. They lost both parents. I know what that's about, having neither father nor mother. Both of my mother and my father are deceased. It's a very hard feeling. And anyone who's going through that, may the Most High give peace to your soul, because it's a very, very difficult thing. When I knew my mother was going to be leaving this earth, and when I understood that my father had left this earth, it's not a very good feeling, brothers and sisters. To those who still have your parents, honor them. Honor them. One of the reasons why a brother, not to get too personal, goes so hard with the teaching and goes so hard with the books is because I remember one day, may my mother rest in peace, and I'm trying not to be emotional, right? She came in where we was living in Queens from being a passenger on the Q85 bus. The Q85 goes from Jamaica Parsons Center, those who know the area, like into Rosedale, and some of them go to Green Acres Mall, but it passes through the area of Rochdale, where we were living at the time. And my mother came in and said, son, you need to get your book out. Our people need that help. She didn't see the fruition of the book fully coming out, but she saw the beginning of the book on Deuteronomy 28. So this is a legacy that we want to continue. So when people think, oh, you stuck on yourself and so forth and so on, no, we're continuing the legacy so that way it can be passed down to our children, excuse me, and so on. Joseph's brothers never forgave themselves. They thought Joseph was like them. He's going to want to kill us. You mean like you wanted to kill your brother? See, when the tables turn and these kind of things happen, you'll be surprised what goes through your mind when your conscience starts to kick you behind. When your conscience is beating you up, that ain't a good feeling. And they sent a messenger unto Joseph, saying, thy father did command before he died, saying, so shall you say unto Joseph, forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren and their sin. For they did thee evil, and now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the service of the God of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke unto him. You know why Joseph wept? Because Joseph already told him before that, we good. I'm not going to Tobin. Bring your family down here. I can't kill Otam. I'm going to sustain them. I'm going to feed them. We got children to look up after. So whatever problem we had as adults when we were younger, that stuff is dead now. We can't let another generational curse happen. Hear Shema Yisrael of what's going on in that kind of situation. Mothers sitting on fathers, fathers sitting on mothers. Nah. That's the part of Deuteronomy 28 that we can't emphasize to the next, or let it be part of that. Let us work on having the blessings of Deuteronomy 28. The generational curses after Jacob and their parents done passed, because Rachel already passed away. So Joseph already passed, his mother already passed. She passed giving birth to Benjamin. Benjamin had no connection with his mom like that. If we see the reality of how the family structure and how it went down, you can see what's going on. Rivalry between the mothers as adults, and then sometimes rivalry between Rachel and Jacob. And now we see their children at rivalry. We got to stop that, Yisrael. Because you see where it only brought tears to somebody's eyes. Sad to say, some despise a tight-knit family structure. That is very true. And as the family structure comes together, we have to know and understand what it is. One of the things, and I say this and not to be disrespectful, is back, say, in the 80s or 90s, a lot of black males abandoned the children by leaving the mother with the children alone. Back in the 70s, for those who do know, no man needed to be in the house if she needed to get her bills paid. Push the father out of the house. Norman Lear, the one who helped start shows like the Jeffersons and things like that. That show, Good Times, he didn't want John Amos to be the father in the show, but the lady who played Ferretta made sure a father scene needs to be in that show, Good Times. You do know Norman Lear, the one who started that show, Good Times, did not want the father scene to be up in there. So when we speak about they who despise a tight family structure, it starts from Abba and Ima. Because when Abba and Ima joined their ancestors, they who are the Banim and the Banot, the sons and the daughters, they got to continue that legacy on. In the book of Malachi, it says that the Most High will bring the sons to the fathers and fathers to the sons, lest he, Yah, smite the earth with a curse. So it is not good in family structure. While we are on Shabbat, it says you, your son, and your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant. That also includes your wife, because you and your wife are to be one already. So recently, in my extended kind of, you may say, excuse me, family, there was a death this week that happened in my family. And when I say my family, I'm not talking about my physical blood, but through my sister's relative, and they this week losing their mother, whom they already figured was going to happen. I got a text while I was conversing with my sisters back and forth that said, anyone who still has his or her mother don't know certain words I won't say on the line, don't know certain things. We're gonna this you said the S word about true pain. You understand? The mishpachah we pointed out on this channel. The word mishpachah comes from the word shapak, which means to serve. And I hate to have to say, correct me if I'm wrong, our people, so-called black people, the only people on earth who praise not being with our own people. All the single ladies, but Beyonce going back to her ish and Blue Ivy, their baby. While you got black girls dancing to all the single ladies, she's going back to her child, Blue Ivy, and her ish, Jay-Z. You understand? I remember they had a show in the 90s called Living Single. In the 90s kind of world, I'm glad I got my girl. Where two black men try so hard to just want to sit there and get with a sister, and one brother's just being rejected, for those who do know that show. And the relationships in there just don't seem to work out right. What are you portraying with women dancing on there talking about living single? That is wickedness. We're the only people who endorse such folly. Nobody else on this earth does that. I work in corporate America, and I remember seeing things and do see things on the Caucasian women table, and I said, we got the husband, the wife, the two children in a picture at her desk or his desk. So, again, not that other nations don't go through their stuff, because they do, but that doesn't make it right for us to go through our stuff with a smile on our face like it is what it is. We have to change that matter. We can learn from the scriptures what happens when you keep those generational curses going. You don't learn to forgive yourself after you've been forgiven by whom you offended. And because you never forgave yourself, you got to sit there and feel, I'm going to send messengers because Abba made you swear. So, of course, Joseph is like, are we serious? Are we backsliding, O Israel? We moved on from that. The offense was done. I forgave you. We can move on. Let's build for the family. But when you can't forgive yourself and stuck in yourself, and so forth and so on, those are the kind of things that wind up sadly happening. So let us not continue that kind of matter. Let's go on with the time allotted. Thank you. And his brethren also went and fell down before his face, and they said, behold, we are your servants. And Joseph said unto them, fear not, for am I in the place of Elohim? Am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me. But Elohim meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. They didn't see the bigger picture. They didn't see the bigger picture, O Yisrael, which I call, not that I'm a psychologist or anything of that sort, or a psychiatrist or anything of that sort, then the Saul mentality. Saul who tried to assassinate his son, Nasi Yohanatan, or Jonathan, Nasi meaning prince, who delegated his daughters like, yeah, you be with my daughter here, I'll take your my daughter back and give to this man again. Sloppiness. We can't continue that kind of sloppiness, O Yisrael. Goes on to say, now therefore fear not, I will nourish thee and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly unto them. I gotta reach over here to get it. I want to read something sidebar, if we will, out the scriptures. I'm going to type in what I'm reading out of. Proverbs 15. We're just going to read Proverbs 15, verse 1, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. Right? And what does this say in this particular case? A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Consider us. Take heed to the good. Now therefore, fear ye not, I will nourish thee and your little ones. He's talking about his nieces and nephews. I got you. If I got, you got. And Joseph, believe me, he had to give. So when you're in a position to give, there's no reason for one to sit there and just try to play games with it. If you know the kind of spirit that Joseph had. These are things we want to point out for reference purposes. You meant it for evil. The Most High meant it for good. Next part. Psalms 105, verse 16. Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He broke the whole staff for bread. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant, whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron. Until the time that his word came, the word of Yah tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord of his house and ruler over all his substance, to bind his princes with pleasure and teach his senators wisdom. What are we talking about here? Joseph teaching the senators and the princes of Egypt wisdom. The wisdom he got from Yah, the wisdom he heard by listening to his father Jacob, the wisdom he heard by understanding what Isaac taught, though he never met Abraham, the wisdom that Abraham would have taught Isaac, that would have taught Jacob, would have been taught to Joseph. And this is why we want to point this out for reference purposes. Not backsliding on this or backtracking. The reason why I read Proverbs 15, a soft answer turneth away wrath. It says, and he comforted them and spoke kindly unto them. There's nothing wrong with speaking kindly, brothers and sisters. We, again, are the only people who feel, I don't need no one to sit there and tell me that I can make them on my own. I need happiness within myself already. We're the only people in the world talking that kind of foolishness. We are, again, the only people in the world talking that we don't need nobody and need to be interdependent. Let's grab myself up by my bootstraps. If you are grabbing by your bootstraps, how can you reach for the stars? Your hands are at your feet. So if you got to pull up your bootstraps, what are you doing after that? Staying bent over? No, Yisrael. It says in Isaiah chapter 51, we have laid our back down to everybody who passed over. When do we look out for we and become interdependent and use ourselves as our most valuable resources? We can't do that as long as we got that hatred, and you can't fake love. You cannot fake love. Eventually, it's going to come out. So, being that Torah teaches us, what? You should not hate your brother in your heart. Because you're not going to say, I hate you. you start moving funny style, or you do move funny style. Or in Genesis 37, you can't speak peaceably to the person. Shalom. Whoa, it's like that. Don't harbor that in. Let it come out. And once you let it out and it's understood, drop it. And let's move on, as Joseph said, for the children, the next generation. These are things we can pick up on. It goes on to say, Psalms 105, verse 23. Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham or Ham, and he increased his people greatly and made them stronger than their enemies. Radford, in his book, no, I got it on a different shelf, sorry. Radford wrote a book, which you can get online, called Egypt, Canaan, and Israel in Ancient Times. The name of the book is called Egypt, Canaan, and Israel in Ancient Times, written by a guy named Radford. And in it, he stated, as we mentioned earlier, right, the Amu, the Egyptian term for Asiatic, that the Asiatics were more populous and better off in Egypt than the true Egyptians. So when we read right here in the scriptures, line upon line, it says, and he increased his people greatly and made them stronger than their enemies. The sister Sarah Michaela wrote, sad to say, some despise a tight-knit family structure. And looking upon that, Shalom. Can I be heard now? Can I be heard? Shalom. Can I be heard now? Can you type in the number 4 if I can be heard? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to explain what I think happened. This is my fault. I'm going to take the L for that, as the saying goes. What happened was the part that I'm using to connect for the internet, my silly self unplugged it by accident, not realizing what I was doing. That is why it is not feasible to try to do everything by yourself. You need help. That's just a sign right there. But all right, so thankful to the creator that we're able to get this back on. We're going to continue pulling up the PowerPoint. All right, and we're going to continue where we left off. In this case, we got to, share the screen. How's everybody doing? Thank you for your patience. I apologize on that on my end. All right. We're going to share the screen, right? And continue in said vein. Dorayahu, how you doing, Aki? We need to get online. We've been talking about that for over a year, and so thank you. That pull this back up. All right, we're going to start from current slide. And what we were essentially getting in on, right, is, brothers and sisters, the necessity and the magnitude for a family. We can't stress that enough. I saw a movie where they broke up the family in slavery. There is a slave, right? All right. I'm going to do this. Where they taught sisters to break up the family structure. So you want to talk about reversing the Willie Lynch curse? Be there for your family. Again, we are the only people who think it's okay to not be one with another. The black woman is the most unwed female on the planet. And it's said by divorce is going to go up according to what they're saying. Are we serious? We got to change that, brothers and sisters. I was raised in the understanding of Israel. I'm in now my 40s. Most of the generation I came up with from the 1980s, and this is no knock on anyone's child, including mine. Most of us have children with mates who were not and are not in this way of life. There were mothers that will have a child with somebody, and he's still saying, what's wrong with the name Peter? Just throwing that out there. Or it's my baby, and I'm going to give her pork. I'm taking her to church and teaching her Jesus. That's now in the Israelite community from the generation that I knew coming up in this understanding as a child. Now, if you look at the bigger community of our people, so-called black people, now what are you going to sit there and state? Many were taught if she can't use a comb, don't bring her home. But we, again, are the only people who take pride in not being one with another. We got to stop that. It's not about being, quote, racist. It's about loving your own. See? Jacob. Jacob knew that his sons hated his other son. You don't think parents know their children and who can get along and who don't? Verse 25. He turned their heart to hate his people, to deal subtly with his servants. We know what happened. Joseph was good to the Egyptians inside of the land of Egypt, and then it turned bad for the Israelites later on. We went over that on this channel with the Israelites and the Egyptians, the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus, and things of that nature. But just wanted to go over that for reference purposes. First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 53. Now, Maccabees is, brothers and sisters, centuries, even thousands of years after Jacob. Let's see what they stated. Joseph, in a time of distress, kept the commandment and was made Lord of Egypt. When you read in Genesis, it says, brothers and sisters, what? You will be on a certain plateau, Joseph, and only in a throne will I be higher than you. To become a vizier is what Joseph became. Do not knock politics and going into it, Yisrael. Joseph, for the lack of a better term, was what you call a politician. Nehemiah was, for a lack of a better term, a politician. You just got to know commandments and know I'm not dealing with the woman who's married. I'm running from her like Joseph did. Sanballat, I'm Nehemiah, and you're a crook. So we're not dealing with that. So just wanted to point that out. Don't knock the political movement when you know that our people were, for the lack of a better term, politicians in the ancient world. When it says he was made Lord of Egypt. So, brothers and sisters, I want to read. We'll be reading from the book of Joshua, chapter 41. All right. Now, this is the book of Joshua that I'll be reading out of. And I'm using this, not that I use it often when teaching, but I'm using this as a reference point, if we will. All right. And here is what we're going to read about this, on whether or not Joseph was sold by his brothers. All right. Thank you for who stayed in on my end, and let us continue in this same vein. It goes on to say here in chapter 41 this. And an angel of the Lord found him wandering in the road toward the field. And Joseph said unto the angel of the Lord, I seek my brethren. Hast thou not heard where they are feeding? And the angel of the Lord said unto Joseph, I saw thy brethren feeding here, and I heard them say they would go to feed in Dothan. And Joseph advanced on his brethren, and before he had come nigh unto them, they had resolved to slay him. And Simeon said to his brethren, Behold, the man of dreams is coming unto us this day. And now therefore come, and let us kill him, and cast him into one of the pits that are in the wilderness. And when his father will seek him from us, we will say an evil beast had devoured him. And Reuben heard the words of his brother concerning Joseph. And he said unto them, You should not do this thing. For how can we look upon our father Jacob? Cast him into this pit to die there, but stretch not forth thy hand to spill his blood. And Reuben said this in order to deliver him from their hand and to bring him back to his father. Now we know that Reuben left and went along the sideways, and then Joseph was sold by his brethren. Now it goes on to say in chapter 42, verse 18, and the Midianites saw that Joseph was of great appearance and well favored. They desired him in their hearts and were urgent to purchase him from his brethren. And the sons of Jacob hearkened to the Midianites, and they sold their brother Joseph to them for 20 pieces of silver. And Reuben, their brother, was not with them, and the Midianites took Joseph in, continued their journey. So why do we want to poke this out right here, brothers and sisters? that right here, if you do deal with the book of Joshua, not what Israelites do, it distinctly says that Joseph was sold by his brethren. So it's right here in the book of Joshua, chapter 41 and chapter 42. That's the point in reading that. We already went over earlier, before the interruption, sorry about that with the internet, that happened with the situation with the scriptures. I'm your brother Joseph, whom you sold. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. Josephus, book 2, chapter 3, with the time allotted. But Judas, which is the Greek form of saying Judah, being one of Jacob's sons, also seeing some Arabians of the posterity of Ishmael, carrying spices and Syrian wares out of the land of Gilead to the Egyptians. And Rubel, after Rubel was gone, or Reuben was gone, and advised his brother to draw Joseph out of the pit and sell him to the Arabians. This is out of the book of Josephus. Remember earlier when I stated that they who grabbed him out the pit? Let's go back there, brothers and sisters, right? And it says, in Genesis 37, verse 28, then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit. Earlier, I was stating the part that you see there highlighted, they drew, that third person plural, they, is talking about the sons of Jacob, Joseph's brothers. Now, when we read here in Josephus, book 2, we see this. And it goes on to say, after Rubel, or Reuben, was gone, advised his brother to draw Joseph out of the pit and sell him to the Arabians. For if he should die among strangers a good way off, they should be freed from this barbarous action. This, therefore, was resolved on. So they drew Joseph out of the pit and sold him to the merchants for 20 pounds. He was now 17 years old. He was 17 when he was sold, brothers and sisters. He didn't meet Pharaoh until he was 30. So what was he dealing with in his 20s and his late teens? See, do you know how many brothers are in their late teens and in their 20s going through the penal system or the prison system in America, the second Egypt? Many, too many. I remember, and I'm not going to mention the person's name, but I remember going to visit somebody in a prison in a certain place. And the amount of my peers that I saw when I was 22, 23 years old astounded me. I was astounded at 22, 23 years old about the number of my peers, people my age at that time, that were incarcerated. So don't look down on people who were incarcerated. Joseph stated that you meant it for evil, but Elohim, God, meant it for good. Let's go on and close out. The flyer meme that you see on the side, was Joseph sold by his brothers? Some have taught that Joseph was not sold by his brothers. In this lesson, we will examine the Bible references on the matter. Let's let the book speak. More Yeshaya Torah lessons. I'm asking you all to subscribe to the channel. Yeah, Joseph was sold by his brethren. Next slide. Inspiration and next presentation. Speak positive words into your life every single morning. Think big, think healing, think success, think peace, think happiness, think growth mindset. Always set the day with positive energy. You deserve it. Good morning. Healthy selfishness. Don't sit there and let somebody tell you you must be miserable. What does it say right here? It says what? Genesis 45. Now, therefore, be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here. For God did send me before you to preserve life. It goes on to say this in this particular case. But as for you, you thought evil meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly unto them. You meant it for evil, but the Most High meant it for good. They still had to forgive themselves. But it was Joseph's responsibility and his maturity to say, I'm going to comfort you. I'm going to speak kindly to you. We're not going to let this generational curse go on and day in and day out, at home, at work, on the way, back and forth. We're not going to keep on doing that because nobody comes out the winner. My younger sisters just lost their mom this week. She did not, and I say no disrespect intended, make it over a certain age. I'm not even going to mention her age. But brothers and sisters, we got to do better. We means just that. We. Goes on to say this here. We're going to read this meme again. Speak positive words into your life every single morning. Think big. Think healing. Think success. Think peace. Think happiness. Think growth mindset. Always start the day with positive energy. You deserve it. Good morning. Boquerto. Not just like some people say, good morning, and all they say is morning, good night, night. What happened to the good? That adjective, like Ben Dora just said, you good? I know he was talking about the recording and being heard and so on. But why do people sometimes when you say good morning or good night, or they say it's more part, morning, there's a spirit that doesn't allow maybe one to say good. So you have to be that encouraged one for him or her. Don't forget to say good. And sometimes, how you doing? Hope all is well. I'm well. Thanks for asking. You're supposed to ask back. I'm good, and how are you? But when you don't ask back, but thanking somebody for asking you, why do you reject the thanks that you can get for asking somebody? Interdependent. People ask each other their welfare back and forth. How you? You good? Let me know how I can be of any assistance. And if I can't personally do it, I'll try to find a way for it to get done. Next presentation. Translation of the names in Genesis chapter 25, verse 18. Translation of the names in Genesis part 5. This will deal with the names of the 12 tribes. More Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. That's another channel. I'm going to ask you all to subscribe to it. More Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. That's another YouTube channel. Thank you for watching this on this particular channel. That is this coming so-called Thursday night. Brothers and sisters, January 26th. Subscribe to the channel for when we go live in that particular case. We're going to try to set that off at 6:15 p.m. All right. So for those who are interested, subscribe to the channel. This one, get the notification. More than Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. January 26th, 6:15 p.m. We're going to go over Hebrew with the names of the 12 tribes and the names of Genesis chapter 25. Why? Because it's something, may she rest in peace, my mother told me, pardon me. She would read the Bible and then want to put it down because she don't understand the names in it. So if we're saying we're Reuben, behold the son, Shimon, hearing, Lewi, join, Yahuda, Yah is praised, Dan, judge, Naphtali, my contention, God, fortune, Asher, happiness. Yisachar, that which is higher, Zebulun, dwelling or habitation, Joseph, adding or increasing, Benjamin, son of the right side. If we are saying those are our ancestors, then we must know what those names mean just by default. And I still say, pick your teacher. I may not be your Hebrew teacher. Let's go on and close out, brothers and sisters. Words of inspiration and wisdom from Sarai. Sarai's my lady. Much respect to her. Don't allow people's darkness to dim your light. Keep shining bright. Remember, you are anointed instead of part. Today is a new day, and it brings with it a new set of opportunities for me to act on. I am attentive to the opportunities, and I seize them as they arise. Correct me if I'm wrong, the Panthers had a thing with Harry P. Newton called Seize the Time. So when these things arise, seize it. I have full confidence in myself and my abilities, and it does not make one arrogant or prideful. I can do all things that I commit myself to. No obstacle is too big or too difficult for me to handle, because what lies in me is greater than what lies ahead of me. I am committed to improving myself, and I am getting better daily. I am not held back by regret or mistakes from the past. Let's remember that. I am not held back by regret or mistakes from the past. See, Joseph's brothers sending somebody out there, they didn't forgive themselves. They regretted it, and it ate at them and ate at them and ate at them and so on. I am moving forward daily. Absolutely nothing is impossible for me. Brothers and sisters, this is word of wisdom and inspiration that my lady Sarai wrote online, and I copied and pasted with her permission, even and respect, to put it out there to the people, because it's something that we need. When we say good morning, Bokwea Tob, good afternoon, Zaharayim Tob. When we say good night, Lala Tob, or even Ereb Tob, which is good evening. When we say Yom Tob, good day. When we say Shabua Tob, good week. Kodesh Tob, good month. Shana Toba, good week. Chai Tob, good life. And when we greet and say Shalom, meaning peace from the word Shalom, which means to be complete. We don't greet and say Milkama, war. What camp does that? Where you greet and use the word Milkama. The word in greeting is Shalom. And I contend to the people who don't understand why a brother, and I say this in no offense to anyone on this earth, why, brother, oh, you always text me good morning and good night. I was raised, I need who quamti. Look how bad it ami. Hatam ani, lo. About lo. Ese awel. Bid barai. Ba'ami babokwer or laila or bazaharaim or bashabua. What did I just state? I was raised to give honor to my people. Hatam amni, am I perfect? Lo, no. But I will not be okay with not trying to say a good word to our brothers and sisters. Anihu quanti la asot oto. I was raised to do so. And giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. We hope and pray that you all enjoyed the lesson, learned from it. If you disagreed with it, we ask you all to leave a comment as such in that case. And again, I apologize on that slight matter with the internet going out at the moment, brothers and sisters. And the sister wrote, commit to not just to just teach each other, to commit to not just each other, but our evolution. I'm sorry, I misread that. Commit to not just each other, but our evolution. So yes, I respect that, my lady Sarai. So as we commit to each other, grow in it, moving forward. Like we went over on this channel when we read Jeremiah chapter 7. They went backward and not forward to our evolution. We're not talking the scientific version when they say you evolve. We're talking about growth and development. That's really what the GDs in Chicago was supposed to be about. So, brothers and sisters, giving honor and praise unto the Creator and maker of heaven and earth. Most High be with you all. I can be reached at, brothers and sisters, 908-587-4841. All right. Dorayahu ben Dora, shalom, my brother. Oriya ben Yisrael, shalom, my brother. Ima, Elder, I want to say the name right. Marcia Yisrael, shalom, Ima. My love, Sarai, shalom, we shall speak. And hope and pray everybody is well. Shabbat shalom. Again, I'm asking you all to subscribe to the channel. Also, the channel Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. We intend this so-called Thursday coming up, brothers and sisters, to do a lesson regarding the Hebrew names of the tribes of Israel and the names in Genesis chapter 25. Shalom.